Hello, everyone, and welcome to this, the September 16th, 2015 episode of Balls Deep Sports Talk. With me, your hump day hero, host with the most, Scotty Ball, and I hope you're doing good here this Wednesday evening. I will let you know right away that as for me personally, I couldn't be more shot. I am completely just fried out, drained, beat, worn, you name it. I resisted every urge within my mind and body to simply take a vacation week this week because, I just have too good of a conscience. And lo and behold, here I am with you, ready to talk some sports as we do here every Wednesday night around approximately 9 p.m. Central Standard Time until, approximately 2 hours after that, whatever the show ends up to be for length, as we have no time limit here on Balls Deep Sports Talk. But again, like I said, we come to you every Wednesday night at approximately 9 o'clock on internet radio station WNLMradio.com, Northern Lights Radio. Again, that's WNLMradio.com for Northern Lights Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Also, if you're listening via the Spreaker app, my personal favorite way now to enjoy the show on when it's not Wednesday at 9 o'clock. Or also, you can listen live on there as well. But welcome if you're listening via the Spreaker app, as well as the TuneIn app, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And any day now, if we can keep our listener numbers solid here now moving forward throughout the football season, we will be available on iHeartRadio within the very near future. But that is up to you guys, the Balls Deep Army, my weekly Balls Deep goers. That is not up to me or anyone at the station. So if that's something you would enjoy and make use of, please continue to not only listen to and support the show, but also spread the word on the show to people that you may know who might like the show and are not aware of it. All right, so what do we have for sports talk here on this, our 31st episode of Balls Deep Sports Talk? Well, obviously, any numbnuts could figure out we have a ton of football to discuss, as we will here for, like I said last week, it'll be about 6 months of heavy football talk here on Balls Deep Sports Talk. Last week actually, starting on Thursday night, but then primarily on Sunday, and then into the two games on Monday night. This was week one, opening week of the NFL regular season, so I will be catching you up to date on everything that happened, at least the outcomes, score-wise and stuff, of every game, as well as any worthwhile news and notes and possibly statistics that you might find interesting. And we will also be, of course, we'll be talking about the Vikings and their woes as I bleed purple and gold, much like the silver god Paul Allen, who I think I was sipping a little bit too much of his Kool-Aid, although it felt like we were brewing the same batch, going into the regular season. But we will definitely be going over the Vikings' woes. You will be getting my takes on the embarrassment, catastrophe, disaster that was the Vikings' Week 1 season opener game on Monday night in San Francisco, where they lost 20-3. Like I said, I will be recapping all the games to some extent, and we will be going over the upcoming Week 2 games as well. Now, I have been receiving various text messages, emails, tweets, posts, phone calls from people who have my number, what have you, with my picks. Who do I like? Who do I got when it comes to the games? So I have decided that instead of just dealing with all of these people on an individual personal basis, that I'm going to make that a highlighted weekly part of the show here now every week on Balls Deep Sports Talk throughout the remainder of the NFL season. So do not miss my Week 2 pick'ems. I will be giving you who I think the winner of every game this week will be. And we will also, for those of you who embrace the, monetarily accruing system, boy, that was a stretch, that is gambling or pro sports gambling, I will acknowledge what the spread that I have on each game is, and what I think, what I would hypothetically go with were I to gamble any money on those picks as well, although I do not actually put any money where my mouth is when it comes to picking winners and losers of professional sports games. Most of the times when I go through the numbers at the end, when it's all said and done, almost every time I would have won money and come out on top. But those weeks where, you only picked 6 out of 16 games right, like I can't handle those weeks, so I just avoid it altogether. But I know a lot of people enjoy that, and it helps make the games a little more interesting. So I will be acknowledging the point spreads as well in my upcoming Week 2 Pick'em segment for the NFL season. And so that's, definitely, if you're a football fan, you should like this episode, and we should have a lot of good content for you, especially NFL related. Not to say that it will be exclusively NFL. We will also be talking some college football. I will try to recap any significant games or activities that occurred over the last week in Week 2 of the college regular season. You will get my take on the current state of the Minnesota Gophers as they are coming off of their first win of the season against the Colorado State Rams. I believe that was at Colorado State, I'm pretty darn sure. I watched the game. I should freaking know where it was at, but if you watched the game, you might know what I'm talking about. But again, we'll get to that. But so we got college football coming up as well, not just Gophers, but we'll try to at least give a good glance at the top 25 and where teams are at this early in the season. We will also be talking a fair amount of Major League Baseball, as there are only 3 weeks of the season left, and the division races and wild card races are every bit in their home stretch runs, and the majority of races in this Major League Baseball season are actually really good. Divisional races, we've got a great race in the AL East and the AL West, and then consequently out in the National League, we also have it's kind of fallen. There's been some separation lately, but we had at least, and then maybe, you never know, one of the teams gets hot. But we've had some decent competition in the NL East and the NL West as well for their divisions. And then, as crazy as it sounds, the best team in baseball all year, literally the entire season. There has not been a week since the first month of the year that this wasn't the team with the best record in all of baseball. But the St. Louis Cardinals in the NL Central actually only have, I want to say last I looked, they were at a 4 or 5 game lead was all on the Pirates, and then the Cubbies right behind them on their heels, which is actually a smaller lead than the crappier division winners, or leaders, I should say, the New York Mets and the LA Dodgers have on their second place teams, even though they have a worse record. But so that division race is still open, but both of those 2 wild cards have pretty much been determined. But we'll go into that in a little greater detail later, and of course you will be getting my thoughts and recap and previews and whatnot on your Minnesota Twins. Well, maybe your Minnesota Twins. They're my Minnesota Twins. Maybe yours too. But you will be getting my take on where they're at in their stay relevant push, and their stay relevant push has actually turned into a wild card playoff push, seriously, legitly. So we will be talking plenty of Twins baseball as well as the other playoff baseball teams or playoff picture baseball teams later on in the show as well. We will also be recapping what took place at the U.S. Open tennis tournament this last weekend, as the semifinals and finals concluded after last week's show. I believe Thursday was the first of the semifinals for the women, but then they actually got canceled and rescheduled for Friday. But again, we'll give you more detail on that, but plenty of U.S. Open tennis, as we ended the final major of the tennis season now, and there's a huge story there that we will get to. Also, we'll try and touch just a little bit on golf and the PGA season, as their actual season is now officially winding down. As I've griped before on the show, the average person and even the majority of the sports media consider the end of the season to be when the fourth major is over, the PGA Championship. However, if you are a true golf fan or a actual pro golfer or involved in the pro golf world somehow, you would know that this is in fact not true at all, and there is more significant, relevant, important, historic season that occurs after the PGA Championship. But so we will try to check in on that a little bit. I believe we are getting towards the final rounds or the final tournament of the FedEx Cup, which is their, NASCAR Sprint Cup end of the season, all the points from all the tournaments you played in, that type of stuff. That's their version of that, which they I wonder when they implemented that. I know it wasn't that way as I was a youth. There was no such thing. But probably about 10, maybe 15 years ago, I want to say somewhere in there, was when the PGA implemented this FedEx Cup playoff end of the season championship type of thing. It's comprised, or at least it used to be comprised to my knowledge, of 4 tournaments, and then based off of how you play, and how you rank throughout the entire season up until that point, then that determines who's in those tournaments, and your points carry over. So even if you win these 4 tournaments, if you were the last one to get in, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have enough points to win the FedEx Cup, because all the people have a certain amount of points associated to them based off of where they've finished in the tournaments they've played in this season. But I want to say they're really close to the final tournament of that, where we'll be having a winner here, either this Sunday or next Sunday would be my guess, but it might be this Sunday. When I did look at the FedEx Cup standings last, well, you know what? Actually, let's save that for the segment when we talk about it. Yeah, I can't tell it all to you right now, or then I'll just be repeating myself later. Durr. All right. So anyway, we got PGA Golf to touch on here tonight. We will try to squeeze in a NASCAR quickie, at least acknowledge some current standings for all my NASCAR fans. That's right. We've got a little bit of UFC news to discuss, primarily outside of the Octagon UFC news. So, that would be, I guess, more of a qualifying for a Balls Juice topic. But anyway, we do have a UFC topic to discuss. You get my take on. It involves the suspension of a fairly well-known male fighter. If you are a MMA fan, that is. I wouldn't expect the average casual sports fan necessarily to be familiar with this person, but any MMA fan knows who this guy is. And so you'll get my take on his suspension, as well as an extremely worldwide famous female MMA fighter's take on his suspension as well. And then, oh my gosh, how could I forget this? We had the historic, epic, final chapter in the career of Floyd Mayweather boxing match on Saturday in Las Vegas this last week against Andre Berto. See, that's like a way better name to say if you're Bruce Buffer, the announcer guy. Andre Berto. See, you got to really roll that R if you can. But like Floyd Mayweather Jr., that's just like too many syllables. It doesn't flow. There's no real way to make that sound cool unless you throw in the nickname maybe in the middle and be like Floyd Money Mayweather. You got to make the money I don't know. Getting sidetracked. Anyway, point being, Floyd Mayweather Jr., I'm sure you've heard of him, fairly successful, famous boxer. He had a fight this last Saturday, his last fight of his illustrious, historic career, against one Andre Berto. Gosh, it's hard for me to not say that in a Bruce Buffer voice. Every time I want to announce his name, I don't want to just say it. But so, you'll get some recap on that, and you'll get my take on that, and what, if anything, is in the future for one Mr. Money. And then we also got, as always, we've got WWE to talk about as our first post SummerSlam pay-per-view